Watch this.
Jails are overflowing. Jails do not have room. So there's nowhere for us to put them.
And that's just one problem, according to the Canyon County Sheriff, who says the concept of coordinating with ICE is complex and constrictive and needs to be reconsidered on the national level. Idaho schools are now hustling to figure out what to do after federal funding freezes are leaving them in a budget shortfall. And those cuts could come across a lot of programs and salaries. It's one of Idaho's most impressive natural monuments, but geology is only part of the story. We're taking a look at the Seven Devils through the eyes of one of Idaho's First Nations. Like building blocks, Idaho has tried to assemble a barrier against undocumented immigrants. From the slew of bills passed this session to criminalize entry into the state or limiting access to social services and medical care, to executive orders reinforcing Trump's immigration policies. The latest block was added last month when Governor Little announced Idaho was joining the federal 287G program. It's a partnership with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, allowing Idaho State Police troopers to transport undocumented immigrants who have been convicted of a crime to ICE detention and deportation centers, meaning instead of them serving out their sentence in an Idaho prison or a county jail and then likely released into the community, which has happened previously, those inmates will then be sent directly to Idaho's only ICE facility in Jefferson County, or they could be sent to an ICE facility out of state. The goal is to get the worst of the worst out of here, and it's been explained as a simple concept. But Canyon County Sheriff Kieran Donahue describes the 287G program otherwise to Joe Paris, beginning with why there's only one designated ICE facility in Rigby.
The federal government, just like state requirements and national and state jail standards, ICE has standards of their own. For our facility, when we had auditors come in and take a look at this, there was 23 factors that they're like, you're gonna have to change all of these if you want to become a holding facility under ICE. And none of those are something that we as a county could meet. So that's the beginning part. Ours is a facility that even if we wanted to, we could never meet the requirements. And that's probably common across the state of Idaho. It's very, very narrowly structured, who could do that. Then take it to the next phase. Well, Sheriff, why aren't you a 287G facility? Why aren't you holding ICE? Where would I hold them? I don't have any room. I haven't had room since in my whole career here, right? Over 20 years we haven't had room. So I have roughly 700, 750 people a day walking the streets per the judiciary because there's no room at the jail. So where would I hold these ICE detainees under the ICE program?
Do you think there's a fix to this or even a possible solution, or is this just kind of how it is?
It's a step-by-step process, but it's kind of a whole approach by everyone. Because quite frankly, I mean, this will have to be a congressional change. It's a very complex issue. I think it's lost on, unfortunately, lost on the general public because the best of intentions can be there, but there's a lot of complexity to this. It's multi-layered. A collateral damage aspect of this, if they're not labeled as a criminal illegal alien under what President Trump put out initially, they may be a farm worker. They may be working on landscaping. They may, you name it, right? We have immigrants working throughout our country, throughout our state, especially the agricultural state. When people who really just want to work, they just want to be here and do their job, they're going to have to wait for Congress to figure that out, which we all have been for some time now. Let's come together in unity and let's solve this, whatever that looks like, whether it's work visas, whether it's, you name it. We've got to get there. But it's hard to get there to the table when you have all these other things happening at the same time.
And we've heard from Idaho's congressional delegation in recent years about coming to a solution. And Brian, this is, as highlighted by the sheriff and multiple people, this is a very complicated situation because it also varies from state to state. For example, not every state has the agricultural background that the state of Idaho has. So there may be people on the East Coast, for example, in terms of stakeholders and lawmakers that don't have the same motivation to try to figure out, okay, what do we do with the dairies? The dairies, for example, are not, a seasonal program. They need to run all year long.
Okay, so it sounds like to me his biggest problem with this is basically capacity. But what I understand is if the worst of the worst are going to be taken away, they're not going to be released out into the street anyway. So, and it also sounds like he's kind of dipping his toe, not into the amnesty pool, but that H-2A pool of something needs to be fixed with that. Am I establishing that correctly?
Yeah, and I think, the sheriff and I, in our conversation, we talk about there needs to be a solution from the congressional level in terms of what do you do with this population that are valuable to the communities, that are undocumented, and that are, paying taxes and a part of this. However, at the end of the day, you do have stakeholders that say they're not in this country legally. They should be in here. They should be doing the process a certain way. So as of note, Brian, there's like 3 or 4 Idaho County jails that are trying to be ICE facilities. At this point, though, as we heard, it is difficult.
Okay, lastly, it's been about a month since Idaho approved $300,000 for this program to transport undocumented immigrants out of state or wherever. How much of that has been spent and where?
We did reach out to the governor's office in terms of finding out if the program's up and running yet. Haven't heard back yet, but Idaho State Police and the governor's office have committed to transparency and using that $300,000, again, would pay for about 100 transfers throughout the year.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that too. Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, so imagine if you decided to go bungee jumping, and just before you stepped off the platform, you're told by those in charge they're not sure how the bungee cord attached to your ankles, how long it is, if it's the correct length. You won't know until you jump. Well, that's kind of a morbid and anxiety-filled way to describe what is happening with Idaho school districts right now. But you can bet they are anxious, because just days before they flip the page into a new fiscal year, they got an unwelcome surprise. On Monday, we touched on the billions of federal dollars set to go out to schools that did not go out to schools. A federal funding freeze, quietly handed down from Washington, D.C., put the brakes on billions of dollars meant for after-school programs, teacher training, migrant education support, those kind of things. Idaho's cut of that? Well, we're one of the hardest hit, about $33.3 million, which is about 16.5% of all funding from U.S. Department of Education for Idaho's K-12 schools. So with the school year just about a month away, Gem State districts are now scrambling. Hunter Funk found out what that scrambling or that decision-making from atop the platform is like in Twin Falls.
The last couple of weeks have been kind of a mad dash to figure out what to do.
The Idaho school districts turned the calendar on a new fiscal year with budgets in place and staff in position. But what wasn't in place was the funding.
Just a few days before that happened, many of us saw national breaking news that federal funding was paused for a number of programs.
In just the Twin Falls School District, $1.6 million now put on hold. That's 2.5% of their overall funds for student services.
If we had learned back in March that this funding would not be available to us, we would be in a whole different situation right now. But when this comes just days before our new fiscal year, where we've already entered into contracts with teachers, that timing has been very challenging. It's like finding out 2 days before payday that you're only going to receive a portion of your paycheck, but you've already set aside those funds for bills, right?
It means the community won't have the migrant education, English language learners, qualified teachers, and before and after school programs, which many families rely on.
We're a very agricultural-based community, so we have lots of families that include parents who are migrant workers. They work in the Twin Falls area for a period of time and then move on following the agricultural seasons. So these students, they're Americans, they're our kids here in Twin Falls, but they might only be with us for a short matter of time, right? It might be a couple of months before they move to the next growing season or harvesting season. And so they have these interesting interruptions in their academic year. The migrant education program really allows for us to provide additional support to those students.
So what are they doing now that the money isn't there? Well, the Twin Falls administrative team found out which staff members would be impacted, pulled a list of open positions, and sat down with each person on possible open placements if that pause continues.
It's very challenging to jump in at this point when we've already hired staff for that program to now say we're a month and a half away from the start of school. We need to shift you to a different position.
They aren't alone. School districts across Idaho are still handling the news. The Nampa School District said in part, quote, "While no final decision has been made at the federal level, the current uncertainty is creating challenges for districts across the state." It goes on to say these programs are critical to student success and family support, and the district is actively exploring all available options to ensure students continue receiving the support and services that they rely on. Protecting student learning and well-being remains our highest priority. Boise School District sent this email today to their staff about the pause, saying it's a $1.5 million impact. In a statement, the district says without this funding, we would face difficult decisions that could affect student supports and services, and we're committed to working thoughtfully to avoid staffing reductions and minimize any disruption to our students and schools. In Twin Falls, they are staying optimistic the funding will unfreeze, but say it will create a new challenge if it doesn't come back by the start of the school year.
The challenge then becomes, we've moved these folks to a new position, and do we fill that position and move them back? How do you look for a second grade teacher in September if that's when the funding comes back? Those are kind of the challenges.
Yeah, again, the White House paused the funding, citing concerns about whether the money had been used appropriately in the past years. But districts like Twin Falls say it's in an ag-based community, and these programs are needed to ensure kids can get the proper education and succeed in the classroom.
I know we talked about this a little bit before, but the fact that, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes,
right,
but the fact that Twin Falls is kind of out in front of this and saying, here is our problem, whereas the other school districts are kind of trying to figure it out behind the scenes. But we're running out of time here, right?
Yeah, exactly that. She kind of mentioned this a lot. She goes, as much as we'd love to see it push play, right?
Yeah.
We get the funding. Now, all of a sudden, your English second language or, those programs, now they're a second grade teacher because they had those vacancies they're trying to fill.
Right,
so
and they didn't get the proper training to get in there.
Correct.
They're just thrown in there.
Yes, and so now it's like, okay, well, if that program comes back, now do we move them? And then you're usually not posting positions in September for new teachers.
It's the uncertainty that is making everybody so crazy right now.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Hunter. Well, a serial killer may have been arrested in Magic Valley. Early details of this developing story coming up. But on a lighter note, could we see barbecue and Buc-ee's in the Treasure Valley? Morgan Romero has the rest of the 208 headlines in today's 411.
4 people are dead and 1 man is behind bars after law enforcement says there was a quadruple homicide spanning across 2 Magic Valley neighborhoods. The Minidoka and Cassia County Sheriff's Office, Hayburn Police Department, and Rupert Police Department are investigating the homicides together. The agencies say officers arrested the suspected killer, 56-year-old Ben Naylor from Burley. Officers started investigating what happened yesterday after responding to a 911 call about a victim inside a home in Rupert. 2 more victims were found in Cassia County, and a third was found in a car in Minidoka County. Idaho State Police and the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office found and arrested Naylor. They believe he acted alone, and there is no threat to the public. A celebration of life has been planned for the 2 firefighters killed in an ambush late last month. The Coeur d'Alene Fire Department says tomorrow and Friday there will be a procession before the services beginning at 10 a.m. People can line up to pay their respects to Frank Harwood and John Morrison. It'll start at English Funeral Home in Coeur d'Alene, continue south on 3rd Street, east on Sherman Avenue, and then go south on Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive to the ceremony location. People in the Treasure Valley got excited yesterday when it was rumored that beloved convenience store Buc-ee's may be coming to Meridian. The city confirmed Buc-ee's was eyeing Meridian for a potential location, but the company hasn't filed an application for a land use or a building permit. Buc-ee's fans love the popular road trip stop due to its clean restrooms, plenty of gas pumps, and of course, its novelty items. Their mascot, Bucky the Beaver, may make Meridian home, but as we said, nothing is official yet. And that's your 411 on the 208. I'm Morgan Romero.
Well, if you feel like your summer is just flying by, you're not wrong. You might notice it even more today, though. You might even be able to feel it, because today, the Earth is spinning faster than normal. According to atomic clocks, July 9th will be anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 milliseconds shorter than the normal 24 hours we get in a day. So to put that in perspective, a blink of an eye, that takes about 300 milliseconds. So 1.3 isn't much, I know, but still. And nobody knows why it's happening. But it's supposed to happen again 2 more times this summer, on July 22nd and on August 5th. So yeah, this summer is moving faster than usual, which means you're kind of running out of time faster than usual to complete your summer plans. All of that to say, if your summer plans include a run down the Snake River, say through, I don't know, Hell's Canyon, the deepest gorge in North America, it might be worth knowing your surroundings a bit. So to your left, the Wallowa Mountains of Eastern Oregon. To your right, the Seven Devils Range of Idaho, so named by early pioneers. But those mountain peaks already had names and an origin story, according to Nez Perce lore. And as we learned in a Get to Know Idaho from several years ago, it's today's 208 redial.
The story goes, these 7 giants would head east out of the Blue Mountains of Oregon to inflict their terror on the tribe. So, the last leader of the Nez Perce asked Coyote for help.
Coyote was able to come up and formulate a plan to trap these 7 monsters that were devouring our people at that time. So he dug 7 large holes and he filled it with magma, liquid hot magma at that particular time. And he set up a trap and he called a challenge to the monsters, and they came and answered that challenge and were consumed as they fell into those 7 large pits.
Coyote continued to cover them up with more lava and debris, petrifying them in place.
Of course, those 7 beings, those 7 mountains, turned into what we now know as Sisakimeks, or the 7 Devil Mountains. That's our Nez Perce word for those mountains.
And Coyote wasn't finished. He then struck the ground to open a canyon at their feet to keep more giants from crossing over, which is why we have Hell's Canyon. So here the 7 devils rest, rising nearly 8,000 feet above the Snake River. And while geology is not lost on the Nez Perce, it's these origin stories that live on side by side with science.
These stories are ways in which we teach ourselves, teach our young people about our relationship to the landscape and to this life that we carry on.
Nakia Williamson said there's also a story that puts the creation of the Nez Perce, or the Nimiipuu people, in Hell's Canyon area prior to the 7 devils. And these stories vary depending on the band of the tribe you ask. However, their recorded history goes back nearly 12,000 years, and their territory once spanned 17 to 20 million acres across central Idaho, northeastern Oregon, southeastern Washington, and western Montana. Their current reservation in Idaho is only 750,000 acres.
All right, it is a first alert weather day today because your afternoon could be impacted by Idaho's ever-changing weather, keeping us on our toes as it does. We are watching some storms move into the region now. They are very localized, so you might not be seeing those storms if you are about to head outside, but they could pop up at any moment because they're moving through pretty quickly. Your outdoor activities could be impacted today because we could see gusts up to 50 or 60 miles per hour potentially with these storms if they do occur. If lightning happens, then it could start a fire on our lands, especially because we've been so hot, which has been drying us out in the recent weeks. And then with those winds comes blowing dust, so poor visibility as well and the winds will also create hazards when it comes to driving, blowing around loose objects outside as well. This is a look at our storm prediction map. So you can see the dark green here is showing areas that have a level 1 risk of seeing severe storms. So that's eastern Oregon, southwest Idaho, parts of south central Idaho, central mountains, and even all the way to the eastern side of the state. So again, looking outside, it may not look like a lot is happening in these 4 cities right here: Twin Falls, McCall, Sun Valley, and Boise. In fact, it is very warm outside, but if we look at our satellite and radar, you can see that those storms are happening outside, mostly in the central mountains here and then in Owyhee County, as well as eastern Oregon. There's quite a bit of lightning happening in Owyhee County. Those storms are moving through pretty quickly. If you look here, this is just one example of a cluster of showers that's happening. It could reach Boise in the next hour or so. Typically, that's the only amount of time that storms will hold up, maybe an hour at the most, but those storms could start to initiate in the valley sometime this evening as well. Currently, wind gusts right now are at or above 20 miles per hour in the Magic Valley, Treasure Valley, as well as the West Central Mountains. We do have a fire weather warning in place as well. This is going to expire later this evening once those storm chances die down. That's because, again, those thunderstorms have a possibility of bringing lightning mixed with those winds. That is a mixture of ingredients for fire hazard, because if fire does start from lightning strikes, then it would spread potentially very quickly in all of that area that was highlighted pink. So if we look at how the futurecast plays out, you can see we potentially have some showers and storms still rolling through the valleys later this evening. Again, they look to move through pretty quickly. Maybe through sunset is when storms will last the longest. Boise Mountains, however, could be the one area that do see storms maybe persist through midnight. So some things to know with this system coming through. It is going to be relatively dry overall, not expecting a lot of rainfall with it, maybe up to ½ an inch in some of those really those areas that see those heavy bursts of storms. And then we do have to watch for some flash flooding in burn scarred areas particularly. But tomorrow we should cool down a little bit to the upper 80s in Boise.
All right, just a reminder, starting on Monday, we're going to have an extra 2 hours of Wake Up Idaho to look forward to. We're going to be live and streaming weekdays from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Join us on KTVB Plus for even more headlines, weather, and traffic. To watch KTVB Plus, all you have to do is download it on your TV, and you can watch for free. All right, finally, to close it up, Phil says the problem with the federal grants isn't the uncertainty, it's the stupidity of the current administration's lack of understanding to what these grants are used for. Well, actually, it's a lack of understanding that leads to that uncertainty. So I guess it could be both, Phil. Why would, who would have thought that there were no easy answers to an issue as complex as immigration? Anybody with a brain knows that's the answer. It'd be nice if this administration would stop trying to wave a magic wand over this extremely difficult issue and figure it out. Just roll up your sleeves and get to work. That's what she's saying. You keep calling them undocumented immigrants. Aren't they really illegal immigrants? Is there a difference? Asked Jim and Meridian. It is illegal to enter the country, but it's not illegal to be in this country undocumented. That's the key. That's the illegal difference there. So that's kind of why we just go with undocumented immigrants. Isn't it lost to the public? You, Sheriff, did not talk to the public or lawmakers until now. Where were you before the law was passed? I will say this. Sheriff Donahue was talking to the legislatures about this bill as it was being discussed. So maybe they didn't listen to him. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.